Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Mike Solis from Globe Business, and I'm honored to welcome you all to this webinar we are hosting with our partner, Checkpoint. Today, our session will revolve around enabling a secure work-from-home experience. As we all know, we are in the midst of a global pandemic that has changed the way we live and interact with each other. With companies forced to adapt a work-from-home setup overnight, they now face the challenge of securing a dispersed workforce from the growing cyber threats that can disrupt their operations. Stay tuned as our speakers share their insights on how to build a secure and productive remote workforce. To welcome us all today, let me call on the industry head for Visayas, Ms. Paulette Villaflor.
Maayong buntag. A wonderful TGIF morning to everyone, and thank you for joining us here today. We all know that with the viral pandemic, we were all disrupted. We had to pivot from our traditional routines, our work styles, lifestyles, and even workplaces. From our usual home to now working from home. And it's been 9 months since March. We all had to go through and experience a couple or even more lockdowns. It looks like that this work from home setup is not just the new way, but it is here to stay. Our question is, can we continuously support and sustain this? How can companies be assured of the same level of work productivity and quality given the remote work or the off-site work? And we talk about and ask, what about confidentiality? Data security? How will we or our companies be protected from the growing cybersecurity threats and attacks? We have had more cybersecurity attacks in the last 6 months, from 467 times per organization globally to actually 791 attacks per organization in the Philippines. That is almost double the number. Given remote work and operations, there is definitely a need for cybersecurity, more now than ever. As your trusted business advisor, we in Globe have partnered with cybersecurity experts to help deliver secure and productive remote workforce. With us is Checkpoint, a global leader in cyber solutions for governments and enterprises. Our speakers today will share very valuable insights. We hope that you will be able to learn from these insights. We hope that you will make the most out of the session this morning. If in case you have any questions, clarifications, we can even do some consultation even after the webinar proper. So sit back, listen to the insights and the information from our speakers. Thank you very much for joining us today. We hope that we will be able to assist you in not just surviving, but also thriving this new normal. Again, maayong buntag, daghang salamat, muchas gracias.
Thank you, Paulette, for that message. Next is our first speaker this morning. He is a licensed electronics and communications engineer and has master's degrees in physics and engineering management. He is currently the Director for Solution Sales for Cybersecurity. Please welcome Mr. Marlon Cruz.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Good morning, everyone. So my name is Marlon Cruz. So let me just share my deck. Hold on. Okay. So maayong buntag, good morning everyone. So to our colleagues from Checkpoint, so I apologize if sometimes I'll be speaking in our local language to emphasize some important notes. No? So, okay. So I think it's been 2 years since the last time I did a talk with the Visayas and Mindanao region. So I think it's so exciting that I'm doing this talk, no, while working from home. Okay, so as mentioned by Paulette, okay, the basic purpose of this webinar is at least to provide more insights of what is happening today, considering that everybody is working from home and we have the new normal. So what has been the changes in the threat landscape? Okay, so if you look back years ago when we talk about cybersecurity, no, meaning cyber thieves are known to target only companies which has really valuable financial data. But these things have changed throughout the time. No? So there are no more exemption. Either your business is in manufacturing, retail, academics, healthcare. So everybody becomes a target because of the different factors. Can be a factor of an intellectual property, probably because of the cyber maturity education or cybersecurity awareness. So this becomes a factor, no? Why everybody, when we talk about cybersecurity, becomes a target of the cyber criminals. Okay, so my presentation today will focus more on uh, what is the paradigm shift and what are the key guidelines to implement in order to make sure that us as a company, our employees will be safe beyond your office doors. Okay? So to start with, okay, so in the recent months, so we see a lot of changes with respect to the threat landscape. No? So uh, in the Philippines, you heard in the news about the zoo bombers wherein cyber criminals inserting an obscene material during an online class. Okay. We also heard that there is a rise of hackers, Android users being hacked. As a matter of fact, Philippines is ranked third, no, among our Southeast Asian nations. Okay, so when we started to implement education at home or home study, so we also see almost 30 Philippine schools hacked, no? So you talk about FEU and the other schools. And just recently, we also have BSP that probes 167 million cyber threat, also cyber theft from UCPB. Okay, and only last I think September, the first recorded death due to a ransomware was recorded in a German hospital. No, so ito yung first recorded death because of the cyber breach. So medyo when we look at the cyber criminals, medyo they have leveled up, no? The way they are doing the breaches with respect to the different verticals. Okay? Okay. So moving forward, so what has changed, no, with respect to the new normal or when we talk about working from home? So yung remote workforce threat landscape natin has changed, no? So I think social engineering still becomes the number one cyber attack vector. Okay, mobile device, especially for example in the Philippines, wherein 60% of the internet usage are being now done in the mobile. So there's a rampant increase in terms of the Android or iOS malware. So there's also the smishing, no? Especially for banks, no? And of course, the targeted attack. No? There are recent vulnerabilities since if you're working from home, to have a secured connection from your home going to the applications in your offices, so you need to implement a VPN, no? A secure tunnel. But in recent months, there is also reports of a vulnerabilities in VPN that is being targeted by Iranian threat actors, no? The APT 33, 34, and 39. Okay, so but what is really very interesting to know is what has been the impact to the threat landscape. So everybody talks about the new COVID-19 threats, no? But I think as practitioner, as CIOs, as CISOs, as IT managers, as DPO, it's key to understand that the threat actors are the same, the malware are the same, the TTPs or the techniques, the procedures are all remain the same. So what has been the different? The different is the lure. No? So sabi ko nga, the wolf is just wearing a different sheep's clothing. No? So from April 2020, no, based on the study, they have recorded almost 154K of COVID-19 domains, no, that are being registered daily. No? Google reports blocking 18 million COVID malicious emails per day out of the 240 million daily COVID-19 spams. And FBI have reported a major spike in the COVID-19 business email compromise scams. No? So this has been the impact, no, when we respect to the threat landscape. So as mentioned by Paulette, in the Philippines, no, we take the information that was conducted by Checkpoint, no. So we took a different scenario wherein during April, June, and August, April wherein we are in total lockdown. So we see that organization is being attacked 795 times per week. So if we compare it to 2019, so this has been almost or more than 2 times increase, no, in terms of the breaches that an enterprise client in the Philippines is experiencing. And if you can see on the stats, no, 16 almost, meaning we're quite high in terms of the global average, no, and if you look at the stats, no, so mobile malware becomes the front line of the phishing attacks, no. So because of the inherent conditions of our mobile, so it's always on. So as I mentioned, 60% of the internet usage now are being done by in the mobile, and sometimes like for example for us professionals. Because when we read our emails, for example, we can only see on the display the name of the sender, no? So, but we don't see what is the domain of that sender, no? So that is one of the things that, like for example, on my case, if I read the email on my mobile, so I try to expand it, no? So I can see the whole sender, no, the username and the domain. So I try to expand it, no. So mobile malware has been the front line, no, in terms of the attack vector that we experienced during lockdown. Okay, so the next slide is about how do we see changes in terms of cybersecurity. Okay, today when we talk about the business today, the attack surface have widened. So meaning everybody is moving to cloud. So your transport becomes the internet. Unlike the business yesterday wherein you only inspect traffic coming in and out of your perimeter, no? So the north to south. So the condition is once you're inside the perimeter, no, you are trusted, no, so you are safe. But now since we have changes in terms of how we do business, the digital transformation na sinasabi nila. So there is a wide adoption in terms of software as a service, meaning employees are now conducting what I call dynamic roaming space, no? So everybody can access application anytime, anywhere. So there's a rampant of initiative on BYOD, or bring your own device. So you cannot just trust what is inside. So the perimeter becomes everywhere, no? So sabi ko nga, as you move towards to cloud, as you move towards digital transformation, digitalization, so the internet becomes your transport. So perimeter becomes everywhere. Okay? So in doing this, the traditional way that we approach in terms of security, that we're implementing perimeter security, is not anymore applicable. So yung brick and mortar type of deployment is not anymore applicable when we talk about the threat landscape today. So how do we fight this? No? How do we fight back? No? So we fight this, okay? Okay. So another one is, of course, so I think in Visayas and Mindanao, I think all of you guys are well represented in different verticals. So may manufacturing, may retail. Is right now, a couple of months ago, so Globe announced the 5G, no? And 5G will enable IoT. So a lot of the companies right now are implementing yung tinatawag na convergence. The convergence of the information technology, operational technology, and IoT. But adopting operational technology to an IT environment becomes very painful, no? Becomes very complex because of the two factors. Okay? First is the shortage in terms of the talent. Second one is the inherent behavior of OT. Kasi sa OT, they are the late adopters. No? So they don't adopt a technology unless it's very mature. So if you look at, for example, yung mga utilities natin, they're still implementing PLCs, programmable logic circuits, or yung mga tinatawag nating SCADA. No? And these are technologies that has been existing for a very, very long time. No? So adopting OT in an IT technology, okay, for cybersecurity becomes painful for us. No? So this is one of the pain points. No? And of course, when we talk, for example, healthcare, manufacturing, actually, yung mga CISO o yung mga CIO, they don't govern, no, yung mga OT equipment, no, yung mga machine. No? Like for example, sa manufacturing, it's not under the IT umbrella. No? So normally, it's under the Chief Operating Officer umbrella. No? So but not under the IT environment. So this has been one of the changes. No? But in convergence, because everything will be connected, no? As practitioner, I think you have to think about convergence of IT and OT under a single umbrella. So this is something that you have to think as practitioner. Okay. So how do we fight back? Okay. So we fight back by doing what we call a zero trust. So I think later Bruce will talk about what are the technologies in place, no, to be that can be implemented in order to comply or to implement a zero trust architecture. So the zero trust is basically a paradigm shift, no, in order for us to close the security gaps. No? So ang ano lang naman yan is zero trust is don't trust anyone. No? So when we talk about zero trust, merong mga implementing factor yan. No? So I'm going to highlight some of the implementing factor. No? But when we talk about zero trust, okay, so these are basically the implementing factor. No? So you have to have a zero trust in terms of data, people, networks, workloads, devices. No? So when you implement a total zero trust across every aspect of your IT infrastructure, so what you get is more of a complete, efficient, and preventive. No? So you need to have this capability, no? Even before you need this capability, no? Kailangan nyo magkaroon na nito bago nyo pa kailanganin, no? So us right now, because of the new normal, so we are really enticing everybody, all our clients, at least to adapt to a new framework, what we call a zero trust architecture. So in zero trust architecture, there are different factors. The first factor is when you talk about the zero trust networks. So sa zero trust networks, this is what we call yung mga divide and rule. So you do micro-segmentation, network segmentation, application segmentation. So how do we do this? Okay, because in an organization, you have different risk appetite. Meaning the risk appetite of an HR is totally different from a risk appetite of a finance. So in implementing this one, so if you want to make sure that you're doing a segmentation, so one key advantage of this is in case you get breached, no? So for example, na-breach yung finance or na-breach yung admin o yung HR. So you're making sure na the breach is concentrated sa HR lang, sa finance lang, o kaya sa admin lang. No? So in case of responding to a breach, no, it makes more sense to us as practitioner. So mas madali yung ginagawa natin as practitioner. Because we can finger point immediately kung saan merong breach. No? So that is basically a zero trust network. No? So we need to have this implemented depending on the risk appetite of the different division in an organization. So that's the first factor when you do implement, or the first principle when you do implement a zero trust network architecture. Okay? The second one is the zero trust workloads. Okay? So ano yung zero trust workloads? Since everybody is moving towards the cloud, no? So you talk about the cloud assets, containers, VMs, since they are facing the internet, so they become vulnerable and attractive target. So in implementing that, so you need to have some sort of controls like threat prevention. So dito pumapasok yung mga cloud solution the cloud solution of Checkpoint, meaning the Dome 9, in order for you to understand na there's no misconfiguration when you move towards cloud, no? So ang key factor dito is you're having a single policy to securely connect your cloud infrastructure. And at the same time, you can immediately respond to changes, no? So depends kung anong policy o kung anong governance ang ini-implement that is being implemented by the company, so immediately you can adapt to it, no? So that is the second one, no? Securing your workloads, okay? The third one is about securing the devices, no? So sabi nga sa statistics, okay? 70 breaches involves compromised devices. So in the new environment today, the way we conduct our business, there are a lot of data that is traversing from the servers to the devices to the databases. So how do you secure those, how do you secure those devices? So you have to make sure that these devices are secured. So regardless if that is an IT asset or if that is an IoT asset or if that is an OT asset, you need to have a security control in place to make sure that these devices are secure. Okay? Next one. Okay. Zero trust data. No? So I think all of us, meaning as an industry, so if you're in a financial insurance industry, so you need to comply to Circular 982. Or if you're a retail industry or manufacturing, so all of us needs to comply on the Data Privacy Act. So if you're on a healthcare industry, you need to comply on HIPAA. So, ang ano nga namin is, when you protect your network, when you protect your devices, so it is a must that you protect your data. You protect your data, whatever the condition of those data. Either that is data at rest, data in transit, or data in use. No, I think the data loss prevention right now has become a pillar if you're a data privacy officer, no, or if you're a security information officer. So one of the key main function or responsibility of us as a practitioner is to protect your data. Either that is a customer data, an IP data, a healthcare data. So everybody needs to protect the data, no? Because an exposure in data, no, as mentioned in the Data Privacy Act, no, so meron siyang, you can be penalized and by imprisonment. At the same time, may fine siya, I think mga around, the minimum is 500,000 pesos. So we need to protect the data. Okay? The next one is, when you protect your data, so dapat protectionan din natin, no, yung mga taong nag-a-access ng data. Kasi 81% of the data of the breaches is because of the human factor. So a lot of those are really stolen credentials. No? So sabi ko nga dito lumalabas na really depends on your risk appetite. For example, sa finance mo, you can implement a more stringent security. Instead of having username and password, you can implement a multi-factor authentication. You can implement identity access management, no? So, for example, sa admin, no, you can have only a username password. So, really depends on what is the risk appetite, no? But when you secure the network, when you secure the devices, when you secure the data, it is a must na you secure the people that are accessing the data, the people that is using the network, the people that is using the devices. So the fourth one is the zero trust people. So you have to make sure, no, that only authorized personnel or personalities are allowed to use or to access the data, the network, the devices. Okay? Next one. Okay. So we talk about the different technologies, no? The network, the devices, the data, the people. And the fifth one that is very, very important is the skill set, no? Right now, I think last year we have 2 million shortage in terms of talent. But actually, just recently, a couple of months ago, I read in one of the article, right, that the shortage of security talents now is 4 million. No? So you need to have some sort of visibility. And having that visibility is not enough. No? You need to have somebody, no, that would be able to manage all this security control, these devices that is currently in place. Because having the visibility, end-to-end visibility, no, you will have the capability to detect, mitigate, respond threats, no, at a single view, anytime, anywhere, no. So, kasi meaning if you don't have visibility, how can you protect what you can see? No? So it's either, as practitioner, it's either you build this internal to you in-house, or you have it under managed. No? So in having visibility, you can have different telemetry from network, from endpoint. You will have 24/7 monitoring. And what is important here is to have an access to what we call the global threat intelligence. No? So meaning kapag may nakita kang breach dito, you should have the capability to compare kung itong breach talaga na to is true positive or a false positive. No? So, and you can do that by having an access to a global threat intel. So in having visibility, it can be two ways, no? So you can have it as a DIY or you can have it as a managed security service provider. Pwede mo siyang gawin internal sa'yo o pwede mo din naman siyang gawin or i-outsource to a managed security service provider. So, kung ikaw ay manufacturing, so ang main focus ng business mo, it's about manufacturing. You are very good on that business. If you're healthcare, you're very good on that business. If you're financial, you're very good on that business. So an MSSP or a managed security service provider is very good on doing managed security service. No? So I just made a comparison. Actually, we did a study of having it a DIY versus an MSSP. This is an actual scenario of our client, a semiconductor client here in South Luzon, wherein we conducted a study of having a DIY and MSSP. Okay? So if you can see on the chart, no, on a 3-year plan, okay, having an MSSP, okay, gives you a 3.6 times lower total cost of ownership. Hindi lang 'yon, no? Since sabi ko nga, because that is their business, that is dun sila magaling, so they can implement a smarter SOC. So they have integrated machine learning, artificial intelligence as part of the process to make sure, no, that the threats or breaches are being filtered, to make sure na hindi kanya ina-alert, no? So to make sure that we are only processing or they are only processing a what we call a high fidelity incidents, because hindi naman paramihan ng incidents to no? So right now, I think the lesser the incidents, the better for us. So ibig sabihin, the solution is performing very well. No? So you will have that capability. Then you will have a stronger security because meron kang coordination in terms of the different assets that you have, either endpoint, either network, either cloud, no? And at the same time, yung mga nagsusupport sa SOC are people or personalities that had undergone different types of certification. So they are certified as a ethical hacker, they are certified as security analyst by EC. So they have that capability, no? And one last thing is, it gives you the capability to, because when we talk about breach, it's not a question of how, it's a question of when. Everybody is a target, no? As I mentioned. So hindi natin maiiwasan yun. But what is important for us is once we get breached, you have the capability to respond, you have the capability to recover. You have to make sure that you have a minimized damage in terms you get breached. So dapat meron kang somebody that will help you na in case you get breached. No, somebody that will help you to immediately kill the attack chain. In doing that, no, kasi yung security naman is not about the technology, no? It's about people, process, and technology, no? So, I want you to reflect, practitioners, ano ba yung current state nyo? What is your desired state? What is your future state? I think if you're an organization that is currently in reactive maturity, baka pwede nyo tingnan is, ano ba yung roadmap ko? No? Or ano ba yung mga steps na kailangan kong gawin to move to a proactive, to move to adaptive. So once you mature as an organization in terms of your security, so yung risk tolerance mo bumababa din, no? So again, wala namang 100% foolproof, no? But what is important is You need to have the capability to respond. You need to have the capability to recover. And in doing that, I think as an organization, depends on your risk appetite. Again, I'm always coming back to the risk appetite. No, it really depends on you because security is always by design. No, you can maintain in a reactive type of maturity or move to proactive, or you can have the adaptive. In adaptive, you will have now the capability to do continuous threat monitoring, continuous threat hunting, using the different tools. No? Meaning one tool that we use is, for example, this checkpoint, no? Yung kanilang EDR. No? So we use checkpoint as a tool, no? That will allow us to do continuous threat monitoring and threat hunting. No? So that is something that we are capable in doing. So this is my last slide. No? So I thank everyone. So I will just leave a parting message that, as mentioned, security is not just about technology. Security is about people, process, and technology. You need to have this capability in place bago nyo pa siya kailangan. And with that, thank you very much for the 20 minutes that was given to me. And good morning again to everyone. Salamat.
Thank you, Marlon, for that thought-provoking presentation on the concept of zero trust and why it is important now more than ever. To add on to that message, let us meet our second speaker. He is responsible for Check Point's threat prevention strategic products across Asia. He focuses on developing relationships with clients to identify and solve their problems, while ensuring the visibility and transparency of Check Point's solutions. Prior to joining Check Point, he was Business Development Director at Symantec Asia Pacific, where he worked extensively with a regional product team. Help me welcome our distinguished speaker, Mr. Bruce Chai.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thanks a lot for your time today, and thanks, Globe, for this wonderful session. I look forward to sharing with you some of the experience we have securing customers and ourselves, Check Point, during this pandemic. So, as mentioned, as presented very nicely by Marlon early on, all of us are badly affected by the rapid changes needed to secure our organization. And Check Point is no different. So I'd like to share with you a bit of the experience that we had and what we have done, and the thought process behind it of why we are deploying the solutions that we do. Okay, just give me a second. I will. Okay. So before I start, just like to check, am I sharing the correct screen here?
You need to swap the display, Bruce.
Okay. Apologize for that. Okay, so yes, so today I'd like to share with you how you can help secure your workforce, especially now that the new business as usual is going to be working from home. This does not just affect your organization, it affects organizations across the world, including Check Point. So today, our biggest challenge is when you're working from home, a lot of the technology that we've deployed traditionally in the past no longer applies in this new normal, right? The traffic that used to flow through your gateway solutions that you deploy on-premise now no longer see those traffic. What that means is that there's a gap. Your laptop, as your users are working from home, when they're surfing that internet site, when they're clicking that link to visit that web page, many of the time that information no longer goes back through those solutions that you've deployed on-premise. What this means is there's less layers in front that's protecting that user, and you're losing that visibility. So like what Marlon said, zero trust, right? How do you verify that endpoint is clean? How do I verify that site I'm visiting is clean? That concept needs to start, it is not applying for many organizations today. The other gap that we are seeing is, as we're working from home, it means that now is there's a reduction in the ability to detect and stop and fix issues. That's especially true when it comes to endpoints. Can you imagine what's the effect of a ransomware going to be on your organization today? If your users are not able to easily bring back that laptop that's now been hit, now you need to start considering what's going to happen if your organization get hit on a office-wide basis. The amount of downtime that's going to happen to restore from the attack is going to be massive. And of course, the last thing is, I believe everyone is on a tighter budget. So as Marlon has presented earlier, you need to start looking at TCO. TCO, and that is not just from a product basis, but as from a complete solution point of view. Be it if you want to look at from an MSSP point of view, or if you're looking at just securing an endpoint, you need to start considering, how do I reduce that total cost of ownership? Because everyone is on a shoestring budget right now. I guess it doesn't help that the amount of attacks that went up quite a lot during this time. You can see from that little chart that I have here, that plot the amount of attack before COVID, during COVID, and where we are at today. You can see that the amount of attacks have peaked very shortly during the COVID period as we enter the COVID situation, simply because attackers were leveraging that period of time where people were anxious for information. As the situation calmed down, the work from home gap really starts showing. You can see that even after the initial peak that happened in around March, April period, the amount of attacks that have continued is still a lot more than before the COVID situation itself. And these attacks that we are seeing are typically related to things like what we are calling double extortion attacks. So ransomware has made a comeback. It is now a new in thing. The difference is that ransomware has evolved. In the past, many organizations were not willing to pay the ransom, which is the right thing to do. So attackers have evolved their ransomware attack to not only lock away information, but also to steal that information so that they can extort money back from the organization if they're not willing to pay for restoring it. So if that information is valuable to the company, they would actually offer to try to sell it to a third party, or even to dump it on the internet just to shame the victim itself. The other trend we are seeing is the number of mobile exploits that have been out there. Checkpoint, recently we have found a vulnerability, a set of vulnerabilities in the quad-core chipset that affect just about the majority of the Android mobile users out there. That 400 vulnerabilities of the quad-core chipset will allow an attacker with the right tools to take over that mobile device and use it to their means itself. The other thing that we have seen during this period was recently we have also helped a customer who was a victim of the world's first MDM attack, which was used to push malware to their users' mobile phone. So in the case of this MNC that we had to come in to help, they had a MDM solution in place to manage their mobile devices. The irony was that MDM was being exploited to send malwares into those mobile devices that are being managed. So this is a paradigm shift in the way attackers are attacking users today, and your mobile device remains one of the most vulnerable set of solutions that you're using in your organization. The last thing, of course, is the number of phishing attacks that's taking place. Phishing thrive on having something topical, and there's nothing more topical than users working from home today. So the number of phishing attacks that have been taking place has been on an increase. And this does not just relate to your email, but also those that are coming through your mobile devices as well. So with that, I'd like to share with you some of the gaps that we've identified during this period. So the first thing you want to do before you can secure your organization is to understand where are the gaps are. And in Checkpoint, what we found is that browsing is typically your number one issue, where most of the attack comes from that. And when we talk about browsing, this is related to that link that you may be clicking on your email, that may be opening a phishing site, or just the simple act of browsing a website that you are used to. Document files coming through your emails remains the number one way that attackers are able to send malwares into an organization. And of course, your mobile device that we all use more than ever today is also a source of vulnerability. It's also good to know that the second issue you're going to face is that users are no longer just working from the office. For obvious reasons, we are now all working from home or in remote sites. And you need to start considering, how do I secure those users? In Checkpoint, we have over 90 sales officers and over 4,500 employees spread across the world. So the challenge that we are facing is very much the same as what you would have today. And these employees are not just using laptops, but mobile devices as well. Which brings us to the third gap. Your mobile phone is a computer. It comes with its own set of issues and vulnerabilities. And today we are using it more and more for our corporate work. Just because your organization may not own that mobile device does not mean that the information that is used to access your corporate data is not important for an attacker to get hold of. So your mobile phone has now become a new attack vector, which more and more attackers are waking up to the fact and are seeing how they can exploit that. And of course, the last thing is humans. 70% of breaches are because of the misjudgment of a human being, be it from understanding a report that's coming in through a dashboard to the simple fact of clicking on a link that leads to a breach. Human beings remain the number one gap that you have, which is where I would like to share with you the top process that we put in place in Checkpoint as we deploy solutions. So how we've done it in the customer number one for us. In Checkpoint, we believe in eating our own dog food, which means everything that I talk about here is something that comes from Checkpoint that we have used internally and we have improved on as well. And this is going to cut across the three platforms, which is your endpoint, which we utilize this solution called SandBlast Agent, the mobile device, which we use SandBlast Mobile to protect, and on the email, in this case, Office 385, which we are protecting with this solution called CloudGuard SaaS. And as mentioned by Marlon, following the process of people, process, technology is our guiding principle on how we come out and decide on what is important for us. So it's good to take note that in a human being, it's true that we should train them, but to err is human, and we would forget our training even though we have been trained and reinforced on. Which is why it's important when you're deploying a solution to consider if this solution is going to help you provide a safety net. In Checkpoint, what we've done is we've recognized that fact, and we've recognized that the number one safety issue that you have, because 70% of attacks starts from a phishing attack itself, we recognize that if we can stop that and prevent that from happening, we are going to be able to prevent a lot of attacks from even taking place. And what we've done is we are not only going to stop phishing attacks, but we are also keen to stop those that doesn't actually have reputation. So those very, very new phishing attacks where your typical reputational based service may not cater for. For that, we have deployed as part of our endpoints, our SandBlast Agent, which is unique in the fact that it can stop those zero-day phishing attacks. It utilizes this technology we call zero phishing, where it analyzes a page. The moment you click on that link to key in their credentials, it will analyze how the page looked like, how it's built, the bits of information in it, and from there we'll score it. And using that technology, we can understand that, hey, this website is potentially a new zero-day phishing site that's trying to trick your user into clicking on that link to provide that credential or filling that bank details. So this is something unique to our SandBlast agent, which protects the user wherever they may be working. And this is extremely important today because users today are no longer stuck behind that office wall. We are sitting from home, and you need a solution that protects where your user is surfing the net from, and in this case, your PC itself. We recognize that not all phishing attacks come from a PC, and your mobile device can be a source of it. In this case, this is a phishing link that was sent to my mobile device, where by clicking on it on WhatsApp, it actually opened a website that tried to trick me into providing my bank credentials, trying to trick me that I have a parcel coming. But this is something topical that attackers know that we are all looking out for, which is why there has been this increase in phishing attacks coming from your mobile device as well. And lastly, the majority of phishing links still come from your email, which is why for email, we utilize this technology that's part of our Cloud Access to help detect that advanced phishing attacks that are typically being missed by the default email security that comes with your O365 or G Suite. We are looking at things such as whether or not the email address is an impersonation attack. Is that email address suspicious? Does it look like a correct email address? Are those attachments that come with it, is it malicious? We are going to send it to a sandbox to analyze it in details. We are going to understand whether or not that link that you're going to click on, is that a phishing link? And we're not just going to look at it at that point of time, but what we have is this technology we call that would actually look at the link at the moment you click on it, so that if that link turns malicious at a later stage, we can still detect and stop that link from affecting your users. And of course, the body of the text itself is important as indication of whether or not this may be a phishing email itself. Since it typically for phishing email, there will be some urgency that's being written into the message. From a process point of view, we understand that process is important because it is the glue that helps link the people to the technology. And which is why the first thing we have done is we've understood that users today, a big part of it is they want that technology that doesn't impact regular surfing behavior. For this, again, what we've done is on the endpoint itself, we have implemented this technology that not only allows you to download your email unaffecting the speed, the attachment without affecting the speed of the analysis, but also to be able to use it, right? So we've done two things. We utilize this technology, which we call threat extraction, which is in Gartner's term CDR, where it will take that document file and recreate it into a safe document called like a PDF. In that process, it breaks the attack if it's a zero-day attack. At the same time, it sends this file to a sandbox to ensure that if you want that original file, which you may say that I need it, that original file is going to come to you after it's been proven to be safe. And this is important today because things like ransomware, you want to prevent yourself from becoming a patient zero in ransomware, being able to stop it before you reach your endpoint is going to be a very important first step. We also recognize that users today, as they're working from home, business email compromises is a big thing. Account takeover is a big thing, which is why we've put in place CloudGuard SaaS with its ID card technology to ensure that the users they are logging into their SaaS services, such as O365 and G Suite, we are able to assure that users' identity with a very high level of assurity. We utilize a couple of technology. One of it is an agent mode. And again, to Marlon's earlier statement, zero trust. You want to make sure that that user is who they are. And we actually put it one step further with the agent mode, which is that we can ensure that the mobile device that is being used to authenticate the user is also free from malwares. Why is that important? Because if you think about it today, your mobile device has now become an extension of your user identity, which means an attacker who has compromised the device could potentially now use it to masquerade as a user. With agent mode, we're able to now have that assurance that the mobile device is who they are and that user is who it is. For users who may not be able to utilize an agent-based solution, we have an agentless mode as well, where MFA token can be used or SMS could be sent. And of course, we are going to help look out for those abnormalities in the user's login. Things like impossible travel, where users appear in one geography, such as Philippines, in one moment, and in a few minutes in Singapore. You'll be surprised how often this has happened, as we have gone and done POCs with customers today, where their emails have been compromised and users are logging in from places that they shouldn't be. And of course, the last part of this whole thing will be the technology piece. The challenge you're going to have today is that there are so many vendors to choose from. So how do you know which is the vendor that's for you? I'm going to give you 3 guiding principles on what makes sense when you want to decide a vendor. The first thing is consider a vendor that provides you prevention. We all heard the statement, prevention is better than cure. And it's even more true in the case of on the PC and things like ransomware. You want a vendor that's able to prevent attack as much as possible, because that would mean that now that detection phase, which is important and is something that has to be done, becomes something that you are able to now find the needle in the haystack. So you want to remove as much of the noise as possible. The next thing is consistency. And when you talk about consistency, is consistency in performance, someone who have done well consistent over a long period of time and will be there for you after you deploy this solution. And is consistent as well in the case of reporting. When you have multiple solutions deployed using multiple brands across your organization, which is what the typical company is like, your challenge would be is understanding an attack, which is where the consistency across that organization is important, which brings us to the next point, consolidation. You want a vendor who's able to help you consolidate as much as possible. Today on your endpoint, you probably have 3, some 4, and even 5 different vendors performing different tasks in there. Each of them will have a different management console. Each of them will have a different training required. And each of them will have a different methodology of reporting. And of course, there'll be the cost component of purchasing the license and maintaining it. So you want to consolidate as much as possible so that it's going to reduce your loads, that overhead on your laptop, that overhead of trying to understand the attack that's coming in. So let me give you a few examples on how this applies. On the endpoint, as I mentioned, Checkpoint, we utilize our SandBlast agent. What is unique about SandBlast agent is that unlike some of the other vendors out there, which are very point solution and is only looking at trying to address the threats that end on your endpoint, we look at it from a holistic point of view. The first thing we believe that you want to do is try to reduce that attack surface. The smaller your attack surface, the less it's going to get into your organization, the less you need to deal with. And with that, we utilize a number of features that we have shown here. I think some of the interesting features that really stands out during this period of time is things like our VPN blade. Instead of having a different VPN solution provider, it comes part of your endpoint agent today. The other interesting feature in here is our web protection. SandBlast agent is unique in the fact that we can help your users when they're working from anywhere when they're surfing the internet, which means that that download that you're getting in is going to be protected. That website that you're visiting, we can control whether or not that URL is part of your policy, company policy. And that is important as more users are working from home. The other thing that SandBlast agent does is to stop attacks when they are running. To stop attacks before they run. And as mentioned, prevention is an important piece of your decision-making process. One of the unique technology we apply is CDR, which is what I've shown you in the earlier slides. To be able to prevent that zero-day attack even before it can land on your computer is extremely powerful and something unique to what SandBlast does. Of course, to then verify it through a sandbox is important because you may have need for that original file. As part of SandBlast Agent, we also do a next-gen AV. What this means is that it has the ability to understand threats that may not have a signature for. And of course, our zero phishing technology means that today, even those phishing sites that are trying to get to your user when they're working from home, we can help you deal with it. And lastly, when the attack, if it does get past the first two barriers and it's now running, you want a solution that can help stop it and remediate for you. We have unique blades in there, which is looking at the behavior of an attack. So once again, we are going to stop the attack, even though a signature or it may not be seen by anyone before. So this is something that would be important because 60% of attacks today doesn't come with a signature, which means if you're just depending on an antivirus solution today to protect your endpoint, you're still open to the 60% of attack that your antivirus does not understand today yet. So what are the other unique things that it does? For SandBlast Agent, the other unique thing is, as mentioned, we can protect an attack in runtime. One of the unique things we do is for things ransomware. Not only do we stop the ransomware attack from progressing further, we actually help you restore from it as well. So if a ransomware should manage to get into your endpoint and is executing today, remember, the biggest challenge you're going to get is how do I restore from it once that attack has completed? With this work from home situation, that makes the task even more challenging. SandBlast Agent is unique in the sense that we can help you restore automatically after the attack has been stopped. We'll help you restore those files that have been, encrypted because we keep a copy of the files through a hidden partition itself. We utilize things like our behavior guard to understand the behavior of the ransomware instead of just looking at it from a signature point of view. We are going to help you automate the recovery. And the whole point is so that your users get back to work faster. And SandBlast Agent, what it does is we don't just automate the recovery of a ransomware attack, we actually automate the recovery and remediation of just about all the attacks that you have on the endpoint itself. We'll collect all this information, we'll build it into something understandable that you can then very quickly take action on, which we call a forensic report. We don't just stop the malicious component, but we actually stop the whole attack kill chain itself. Another thing that's unique to what our solution provides. Many antivirus solution and next-gen AV vendors, what they're targeting is the attacker have got into your organization, which is typically something like a dropper. It's often missed out and allows the attacker to continue attacking your organization even after that malicious payload has been removed. All in all, what this means from your organization when you deploy something like SandBlast Agent is that you're going to spend less time on those tedious items. You're going to have less human errors because a lot of these are going to be automated for you. This would mean that you now have more time to hunt for that critical thing that has been missed. And this is even more important considering the fact that what Marlon has mentioned earlier, that there is a shortage in the number of skill sets. It has went from 2 million to now 4 million gap in the Philippines. So I'd like to summarize on what SandBlast Agent does today for your organization. So SandBlast Agent is going to be a next-gen AV solution for you. It's going to help you understand that zero-day attack. It's going to help your users as they are surfing their internet from home. And not just URL filtering, but including those malicious zero-day downloads as well. It will help sandbox it, which means that if you have a sandboxing solution, this solution is going to help potentially replace that as well for you. It's going to help you deal with VPN connectivity. And for those who need to comply to the DPA Act itself, we have full disk encryption as part of the solution, which is important if you need to encrypt that laptop or to prevent that data from leaving your organization through a USB drive. And lastly, we're going to help you with the traditional AV stuff, because there is still value in being able to detect a known threat. As part of SandBlast Agent itself, it comes with an antivirus solution. What this means for you is that you only need to deploy a single agent that's going to do the job of many different agents that you have today, which means you have a single management console that is consistently going to give you a consistent report and give you good visibility across all the different platforms that you need. It's going to also today help you with threat hunting. As part of all SandBlast Agent solution, threat hunting is now built into it, which means you can use by default our 7 days of retention to hunt for threats, to understand whether or not you may have already been infected with an attack based on an IOC you have found online. And that's how Checkpoint today we secure our endpoints. For our mobile devices, we use SandBlast Mobile, because we recognize that mobile devices are also an important source of attacks. SandBlast Mobile help you understand how those zero-day apps may be possible to infect and potentially exfiltrate data for your mobile devices. SandBlast Mobile doesn't replace a MDM solution that you may have deployed. In fact, it complements it. It helps it understand whether or not there is that malware, and then it works with the MDM to then deploy the policy. The other attacks you need to worry about on your mobile devices will be things like man-in-the-middle attack. When you go surf the internet in that cafe using that free Wi-Fi, whether or not that Wi-Fi hotspot is stealing credential is what SandBlast Mobile is going to help prevent from happening. If the SMS that comes in to your mobile device comes with a link that you're clicking on, that may be bringing you to the phishing site, SandBlast Mobile can help prevent those attacks as well. And of course, for mobile devices that have vulnerabilities in it, just last night, just this week actually, sorry, a new vulnerability was found in the Apple AirDrop, the implementation. How do you know which of your mobile devices are affected by it? SandBlast Mobile can help report on it. And of course, for those with users or Androids, Qualcomm continue to be a challenge with that 400 vulnerabilities that have been found. With SandBlast Mobile, you can now understand which of your mobile devices have that issue. And of course, if something is reporting back to a command and control site, SandBlast Mobile can detect that command and control callback, and we can protect your users from falling victim to it. Lastly, what it will do for you is if that phone is now compromised, we can apply a form of restricted access to make sure that that data that's on the phone doesn't get exfiltrated out by the attacker itself. So as mentioned, if you have a MDM solution in place, I'd like to show you how we can integrate together. What you're seeing here is SandBlast Mobile working with Checkpoint's own capsule workspace, but this can apply for any MDM solution as well. What happens is, in this mobile device, I'm about to install a malware. Upon installation of the malware, you'll see that SandBlast Mobile detects that, hey, this mobile phone is now infected. It will now work with the MDM solution that you may have already deployed to then implement a policy. In the case of Checkpoint itself, in Checkpoint, when we are infected with a malware on our mobile phone, if our mobile phone is in a compromised state because of that Wi-Fi, immediately that phone has no more access to corporate data. They can still the users are still allowed to use it as per normal. It's just that corporate data is now restricted from being accessed. And that is important because we recognize that your mobile phone is still private to many users. And restricting the users from doing their personal thing is something that users will be very against from. So we are just restricting them from surfing corporate resources. The other thing to take note of for SandBlast Mobile is we recognize that privacy is important, which means that anything you're doing here, your privacy is protected. SandBlast Mobile complies with things like GDPR as well. Okay. And lastly, from the email point of view, in our email, we deploy this solution called CloudGuard SaaS, which is really there to help deal with attacks that your O365 and G Suite solution doesn't deal with. When you subscribe to business productivity suites like O365 and G Suite, often the case it will come with some default security. What you also notice that often that it is not sufficient, and there has been a increase in the number of phishing attacks that actually get into your organization. The reason why that happens is that attackers now know you're on O365 or on G Suite simply by checking that email domain that the email is being sent to. And they can very easily then craft attacks that bypass the default security because they know what are the vulnerabilities of it. Which is why you're seeing more phishing emails, which then relates to things like business email compromises, as well as impersonation attacks from happening. Zero-day malware continues to be an issue for file attachments that are being sent through the email, which then relates to account takeover. And also the other thing that often get missed out by organizations are things like internal threats. When an account gets taken over, what an attacker typically do is then try to traverse the account by moving to another target of higher value. So this is where SandBlast, this is where CloudGuard is also looking at the internal phishing attacks. And lastly, we will help you deal with things like the data leakage itself. So how SandBlast CloudGuard is deployed is through an API, which is important because it means that it doesn't replace the security that Microsoft provides to you, but give you more security on top of it. What that means is we are going to catch more threats using the AI that we built into the service. And because it's an API-based solution, it is invisible to the attacker. Lastly, we can help you with the internal threats that we've talked about earlier. And all the security is already built into the solution without you having to add on more additional add-on modules. So the last thing I'd like to just talk about is how everything works together. For Checkpoint, we have this thing called the Infinity Platform. Basically, what it means is all the Checkpoint solutions work hand in hand to share intelligence so that we can prevent attacks even before it starts. It gives you that consistent view across your organization. And it means that you have a single dashboard to look at. So with that, these are the three solutions we talked about earlier. It's there to really help you deal with your users as they work from home. It's help you prevent attack, to detect it, to respond faster, and to remediate from it. All in all, what this would mean for you is it's going to help you reduce that total cost of ownership. So if you would like to get more information, I urge you to talk to our partner Globe. You can scan this link to visit their website. And I'll speak to your account manager to understand how Checkpoint Solution can help you secure your organization as you're working from home. With that, thanks a lot for your time. Along to the next speaker.
Thank you, Bruce. I personally feel better knowing that Checkpoint is a solution to the growing cyber threats we all face nowadays. To help us answer questions from our attendees during the panel discussion, we will be calling on one of our Globe business leaders. He leads a team that focuses on evaluating new products, designing customer journeys, productizing new offerings, and working on special projects such as the Globe Business Cybersecurity Initiative. Prior to this role, he was the head of product development and management for Globe's consumer products. He also held various positions in Globe Business, handling sales, pre-sales, product and business development. Before Globe, he had stints in Cisco Systems, Motorola, and Accenture. Please welcome Mr. Francisco Cocoy Claravall. Of course, we have Bruce with us, and to moderate the discussion, please welcome our solution sales specialist, Ms. Shelly Martos.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hi, good afternoon. Good morning, Sir Cocoy.
Sorry. Kala ko we had such a very good presentation. Kala ko umabot na ng afternoon. But good morning.
Yes.
Especially to our customers and friends and colleagues in the Visayas Mindanao region. Hope everything is well there, especially during these times.
Yes, Boss Kokoy, thank you for joining us today. No? So good morning again, ladies and gentlemen. Don't get fooled on the picture shared on the screen a while ago. It was just us, no? And it was just me, taken 2 years ago. So I'm Shelly Martos, and it's my honor to be your moderator for this webinar. All right, let's get it on. Let's go through the questions in the Q&A box. Actually, I'm running through it now, and there's a lot. And Boss Coco is really excited to answer it live. But first off, I think let's go to the first question. This is for Bruce. Hi, Bruce. Are you ready, Bruce?
Yes.
Yeah, for the first question, how has the COVID-19 pandemic affected the cyber threat landscape? And how are providers like Checkpoint addressing the new security challenges businesses face?
Okay. So I think that's a great question. So with the
Hey Bruce,
COVID-19,
we want to see your face. You're shy.
oh, I'm actually sharing my video. Okay, it could be something wrong with the video. I will, let me see if we can get it working. Okay, never mind. I will,
Yeah, go
hopefully the
ahead.
video turns on by itself. But let me continue first. So
Okay.
during this time, I think what is unique is that as mentioned, during this time, everyone's working from home, right? And because of that, a lot of the solutions that we push in the past may not be able to give you the same kind of protection that used to happen, which is why as vendors, a lot of the emphasis today is how we help you secure your work from home environment. I think what is unique for Checkpoint is that we have actually been pitching that all this while. In fact, the endpoint solution that we talked about earlier is unique in the sense that it is not just there to help users secure their endpoint from a malware-only perspective, but even their surfing as well. So of course, we have doubled down on helping to increase our capability to block attack coming from the web. Which is why today our SandBlast agent can not only stop phishing attacks or zero-day malware downloads, but also even provide things like URL filtering, which is essential for work from home.
Okay, thank you for that, Bruce. So really, COVID-19 has completely changed the way we work now, and we're working from home, right? The key is we as an organization really need to be flexible and adaptable as to whatever comes our way. So we may not be ready at the onset to the threats or attacks because of the shortage on skill sets, but surely we can always learn, no, and do better as we go along on these challenges. We just have to top the right partners, the reliable partners and consultants to help us on the journey, and partners like Checkpoint. Okay, for question number 2, I think this is still for Bruce. Bruce, what kind of cyber threat should we be most worried about with the work from home or work from remote work setup? How do we protect ourselves against this specific threat?
Okay, so I don't think there is a single threat that is more dangerous than the rest. Ultimately, is really what's the aim of the attacker. There is a couple of things that sticks out though. So if you're using your things like business productivity suite like O365 and G Suite, which is extremely popular during this period of time, for good reason, right? Because it provides great productivity. Microsoft is a productivity provider, and they do a really good job at providing great applications. What they don't probably do as good as is security, and that's where Checkpoint comes in place. So business email compromises is a big thing. Phishing emails, big thing. I think what that really means is how do you protect against phishing is probably the number one attack that we are seeing. The other thing that you probably want to be concerned about, which I think has even more impact during this period, is things like ransomware. Not being able to go back to the office to fix your laptop, or having everyone working from home in your various provinces. Suddenly everyone's laptop get encrypted. That's going to be a major issue. How are you going to continue working from there?
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that one, Bruce. Now let's move on to the third question. This is for you, Boss Kokoy. So what should we prioritize in terms of cybersecurity investments now that we're moving to 2021 already?
Well, I think when you think about investments now, especially for 2021, there must be, if you ask me, a focus on automation. And not really whether you should or should not automate, but really more how do you ensure that automation brings the value? Because in every business, when you put an investment, they will be looking for what is the value of this investment. Um, for the IT security leaders, make sure you get a complete understanding of your attack surface, and then determine uh, which areas to automate so that you strengthen the overall security posture. So therefore, when you think about these things and invest on the security solutions, prioritize those that enable you to integrate your data, those that allow you to gain visibility of all the vulnerabilities and assets within. In this time, there's an expanded infrastructure, and the previous speakers talked about this attack surface, as well as those that can deliver insights that help you empower and make your decisions. Um, Try to move away of assessing a solution in isolation, but rather consider how you look at it from a whole program. No, so later on I can talk about how Globe is doing it, but because a high value security program as a whole brings a lot more value than individual point solution. Remember, di ba, for those of you who's been in this space for quite some time, how do the board measure your success, di ba? And the quick answer there is if there's no news, di ba? Um, because it's crucial that when you talk to them, you're able to explain how were you exposed and how you remedied the situation without even affecting the business. And also for those undergoing, a lot of you in digital transformation, you cannot do digital transformation without investing in the security side of things. So if that transition has become smooth, then that's another way that they'll be measuring it. So maybe that's how I would answer it. Really focus on the high value drivers and make sure that the board um, also sees the value by itself.
And thank you, Boss Kokoy. No, I agree with you. So in digital transformation and especially on cybersecurity plans and roadmaps per se, you really need to get the board on board. Okay, for question number 4, I think this is for the both of you, but yeah, Bruce, you can chime in on the discussion. So the fourth question is, aside from putting in place solutions to protect against cyber threats, what best practices can you recommend to help us enable a secure work from home experience for our employees?
I have so we've talked about earlier. Checkpoint did present their suite of services now. Maybe I'll answer that with the non-technical stuff. Some just very basic, and maybe some of you have been doing this or implementing in your companies already, but some are very basic. For example, uh, user education. Every employee in your company should have basic security knowledge. Uh, in terms of being able to identify what phishing email, how to avoid or secure when using public Wi-Fi, or ensuring even your home Wi-Fi is sufficiently secured. Second is just make sure everyone is also aware that they have to be updated in terms of software in their machines. A lot of attacks compromise the software, and the vendors usually respond fast if you update the software. At home, I bet maybe there are still a majority of people who haven't reset their Wi-Fi passwords, which is also a very target of the hackers, right? And maybe last two would be very basic. Make it mandatory for your employees to do backups, whether online if you have a service like that, or maybe some form of MDM or EMM in place, or maybe a physical hard drive. Although that's medyo still also an issue if it gets stolen, etc. So you have to encrypt that. And then finally, very basic, although some people still use it, always try to avoid using USB sticks. A lot of USB, they have a lot of malware goes through USB, and statistics will not lie, right? So some basic tips that I can recall from the practice. How about you, Bruce?
I think I will actually echo what you mentioned earlier. I'll just add to it that security is actually everyone's business. Sometimes there's a misconception that security is only the responsibility of the IT team, right? In the organization today, everyone has to play their role, which is where the earlier statement of education is extremely important. If your users are all well aware of the kind of threats out there, and they are taking their own measures to protect their devices from those threats, that will provide a lot less attack surfaces which the attacker can compromise and utilize to then move laterally within their organization. If you look at any attack, it typically starts from just that little kink in the armor where the attacker gets in, and then from there they'll try to spread to something of higher value. So education will definitely be the first tool that need to be put in place that doesn't involve any technology.
Yeah, I agree. So I think given the time constraints, we will now only be answering two more questions. So I think this one is for Boss Kokoy. If we can share, no, how Globe is implementing zero trust.
Sure. Without going into a lot of detail, um, so zero trust was properly explained earlier, but I always wanted to use this analogy for those of you who like analogies, when telling stories. Um, think of parang zero trust as the Titanic. Of course, the Titanic failed, di ba? Because execution naman yon, but it's not really, no, di ba? But, di ba, in the Titanic, it was so big, and if it was designed so that if one compartment failed, the whole Titanic should not have sunk, di ba? So in zero trust, a separate identity domain separates your authentication, your authorization. It's pretty much the same concept. Therefore, if you get a user compromised in one area, it doesn't affect the rest of the organization. That concept is being applied and has been applied by Globe for many years. We do segmentation of platforms. We do perimeter firewalls from north to south traffic. We do host firewalls from east to west traffic, whether that's cloud services or on-prem. We do use CASP for our traffic going to cloud platforms, such as our G Suite. So we are a big user of Google, as you know. MFA is also standard for our remote connect solutions. And then we're also doing a project that will do MFA for login. Each user device is also secured with next generation endpoint protection. All of our mobile devices also have some mobile management protection. And quite recently, we're also doing implementing some advanced user and entity behavior analytics. So those of you who've heard about that, it's pretty quite advanced. It's used to detect and respond to anomalous user behavior. So, for example, if a user is typically in a day consuming, let's say, for argument's sake, 100 megabytes, and suddenly that same user account is now consuming 1 terabyte, obviously that's a user behavior change, and it may signal something that is wrong. So maybe those are the top of mind that I can share in terms of Globe's implementation of zero trust.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sir Kokoy, for that information. I think our audience can get some of that technology, and use them to their organization. All right, for the last question, I think this is good for Boss Kokoy and Bruce as well. So do we have to start over with our networks or system as we embark on our zero trust journey? What happens to the technologies we have invested in that are not compatible with zero trust?
Bruce, you want to go ahead?
Okay. I think with any IT transformation, it's typically you look for the lowest hanging fruit first, right? So where you see the biggest gap is probably where you want to replace first. Doing a big bang approach typically is very high risk. So I will always say that look at where you see the biggest gaps, replace those first, identify where else you can improve on, and it's an iterative approach in that sense. So no, you don't need to get overnight rip off all your investment, but definitely look at where your biggest gaps are today. So for that itself, Checkpoint, we do have tools in place for partners to utilize, which we call, for example, our security checkup. You can use that to identify today within your organization where the gaps are. That would help you then decide that, hey, maybe, you know what, today I need to replace my gateway or my endpoint, or maybe even my what I'm doing today in the cloud. So we do have tools in place that can help you identify those gaps if that is what you need.
So yes, agree with what Bruce has said. In our point of view, as we have done it ourselves, maybe so that I can share. So there's probably some steps that you can follow, no? So for everyone here who hasn't started their journey, probably a couple of steps. The most important one is make sure, first of all, focus on your data. You need to find out where sensitive data lives and the transaction flow of those data between users, between systems, and between applications. Now that you have identified that, make sure go in and drive your attention to user governance and device trust. So between these first two, you would already find value because you've actually hit on the crown jewel of a company. Now, after you've done that, make sure now you create a business plan. Now, how do you outline the areas for ROI? Because every investment requires some form of ROI, diba? So here, as you go into in more detail, you would see now a lot of things that you could possibly retire. And a lot of IT spending has something to do with movements of people. And there's a lot of cost to that. So you can build a business plan based on making sure that you understand how data is flowing, who is using it, what are the most important aspects, protect, etc. Now, in more detail, a typical transformation maybe can happen in maybe about 5 phases. So the first phase related to what I said is you focus on the data security basics, showing your more of compliance now, looking into those level of detail, identifying sensitive data and business critical applications that store this information, and you map out all those data flows, diba? So first phase yon, diba? Because that becomes the basis of your governance, as we said earlier. Then your phase 2, once you've done that, make sure every company should always have a single source of truth. Typically, that can be your HRIS, or it could be another core application, but typically HRIS, so that you can use the provision roles, application entitlements, and access. In this phase, while you're doing this, you can already implement your SSO, your MFA, because a single source of truth enables you to consolidate all those. And by doing so, you can already start retiring some of your other, if you're doing multi-directory or a lot of other services, some of those can be retired because you're now consolidating. Year 3 or phase 3, so if you do it on a per year basis, focus on your mobile, the mobile side, the endpoint side. So make sure that you're able to manage and have some form of endpoint security for both laptop and device. And then I think the phase 4 and 5, that's where you would probably be doing things like your CASB, especially those that are already in the cloud. And then your user and entity behavior analytics. So for example, in the Globe case, the user and entity behavior analytics is actually sort of our latest implementation. So kasi it's pretty much more advanced. Not every company usually requires that, but in Globe we do need it. So bottom line, your zero trust is really phased. You don't do that overnight. But if you start focusing on your users, your data, your access, and manage devices, you will make already big steps towards better security. And the business case will definitely be a slam dunk, if you may call it, if you include all these elements together.
And thank you so much, Boss Coco, for sharing that a five-phase strategic planning, no, or 5 years planning. Thank you so much for that one. And I think everyone should really focus on the people, process, and technology, as mentioned earlier by Bruce. So again, for those questions that we were not able to answer, no worries. We will be collecting all of it in the Q&A box, and we will email the answers to you. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your active participation in this webinar. I wish we had more time to answer more questions, but of course, we don't want to keep everyone waiting for another exciting portion of this webinar. Thank you again, Boss Cocoy and Bruce, for your time. And guests, let me turn you over back to Mike. Stay safe this holiday season.
Thank you, Shelly, Bruce, and Kokoy. I hope our attendees learned as much from our speakers as I have. At this point, let's go to our special raffle draw for our attendees that's generously sponsored by Checkpoint. So guests, stay on your screens as we draw our winners for 5 917 jackets, 3 917 UV sanitizers, 2 917 headphones, and 2 more 917 personal air purifiers. So to our Magic Tambiolo. All right, let's start. Congratulations, our first winner for a 917 jacket, Miss Jessamine Seguera. Next. Our second winner of 917 jacket is Mr. Roldan Cascabe. Congratulations. Our third winner of 917 jacket is Mr. Nashvel Ombion. Congratulations, sir. One more time. Okay, our fourth winner is Mr. Clint Jude Mercado. And our next fifth winner for 917 jacket. Congratulations, Sir Nonoy Vicente. Now we move on to the UV sanitizers. Our first winner Mr. Chester Agulo. Congratulations, sir. Our second winner Mr. Edmond Tienzo. Congratulations. Our third winner Congratulations, Mr. Ben Jonas Garcia. Now, moving on to the 917 headphones, our first winner Congratulations, Miss Sheila Cabrestante. And our second winner for the 917 headphones Congratulations, Mr. Larry Lloyd Villa. Now we will go to the three winners of our Bluetooth earphones. Our first winner Congratulations, Miss Evelyn Segaya. Our second winner Mr. Julius Susmina. And our third winner Miss Beth Saibil Gaseno. Congratulations. And then now we go to the last two winners of our personal air purifiers. First one is Mr. Christopher Bago. Congratulations, sir. And our last winner, congratulations, Miss Sharon Gallego. And that concludes our raffle. Again, congratulations to everyone. A reminder to the winners, please email your delivery address to Mr. Melvin Alfonso. His email is flashed on the screen. Again, thank you very much for spending your time with us. Right after this session, please do take a minute to answer the quick pop-up survey to help us improve our future events. Also, your Globe account managers will be keeping in touch with you for our future and upcoming events. This has been Mike Solis of Globe Business. Stay safe and enjoy the rest of the day.
When the beat drops down, oh no 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 no. Yeah 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 yeah. Yeah 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 yeah. When the beat drops down, oh no 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 no. When the beat drops out and the people gone, will you still be there for me, child? And when the lights go out and the morning come, will you still be there for me, child? When the beat drops out and the people gone, will you still be there for me, child? And when the lights go out and the morning come, you still be there for me, child.